The purpose of this video is to get a head start with what would be worksheet 30 assigned to on-level math students. It is on solving equations with problem situations, and it was connected to the Google form that was the previous assignment. You were given different word problem scenarios and you were asked which mathematical equation matched with it, using keywords and key phrases to decide if it might be an addition equation, subtraction, multiplication, or division. And those were on this assignment. And so now that things have been matched, now it's time to go ahead and solve them. In your feedback, some students said that they would like color coding or more of a video explanation to know why these were the matches. So this is intended exactly for you. And we can get a head start on it together. You're going to use the equation that was matched to each scenario and then go ahead and complete the do and undo chart like you were doing on previous assignments. You'll get credit for that. Show your work algebraically, which means show inverse operations on the left side of the equation and also on the right side of the equation. Get your answer, your solution for the variable, and then substitute that solution back into each equation so that you can check to see if your solution works. The first scenario that you were given said Ben has a part-time job at the local grocery store. He earns $7.50 per hour. Last week he earned $225. How many hours did he work last week? The equation that should match with that is the multiplication equation, because it had the phrase per hour, and that is multiplicative language. So I took the $7.50 and I let H represent hours, and because per means multiply, I just made them touch because that means multiplication when a coefficient and a variable touch like that. You could also use the dot, but I did not want to confuse it with a decimal. And I could also use an X to represent multiplication like I did right there, but I didn't want to confuse that with a variable either. And then it said that the earnings was $225, and so we'll work backwards to know how many hours were worked last week. Some students on their form said they knew that this problem would involve division to undo, and because they knew that they would have to divide to solve it, originally it must be a multiplication problem. And then this is the undo step that you would show in your algebra work. For number 2, the scenario was Emilio spent half of his savings to buy a video game. The video game cost $63.75. How much money did Emilio originally have in savings? Many students identified this as being a division equation, not all, but the clue of half. That half means to divide, specifically to divide by 2. And so for the equation, I used S to represent savings, that savings was being spent, half of it, divided by 2, and that half of that savings equaled $63.75. Other students said, I knew that I would have to multiply this by 2 in order to solve it, recognizing the undo, and then they knew that what was being done had to be the inverse of that. This will be the operation that is used for solving. For number 3, the scenario was, at the bake sale, Abby sold 8 more cupcakes than Carly. If Abby sold 36 cupcakes, how many cupcakes did Carly sell? The correct match for this would be the addition equation because of the phrase more than. More than means to add. And so I showed 8 cupcakes more than Carly's, and that equaled 36. that you know how you'll undo it, that work will be shown in the algebra scratch work on the left side and on the right side of the equal sign. For the fourth scenario, it said there were 78 fewer students at the pep rally than at the awards ceremony. If there were 219 students at the pep rally, how many students were at the awards ceremony? In this situation, you can pick up on the phrase fewer than. Fewer means to subtract. So I showed 78 students fewer than how many were at the awards ceremony. I'm using A to represent awards ceremony. And that this is 219 students. And if this is a subtraction equation, it will be undone using the inverse of addition. For the final scenario, it said Joey ran 0.5 miles per day last week for a total of 2.5 miles. What was the total number of days on which Joey ran last week? In the Google form, many students used the same clue as you used on number 1. As soon as you saw per day, you recognized that that was multiplicative language. Others said they knew they would have to take 2.5 miles, the total, and work backwards and divide by how many each day. And if you would be working backwards using division as you're solving, then the original would be multiplication. That would be how it gets undone on both sides of the equation. So I took 0.5 miles per day, and again, per, if that means multiply, I put them touching side by side to represent multiplication. And it said it's a total of equals 2.5 miles. So from here, you already know which scenarios match because it was based on a previous activity. And if you got yours wrong, hopefully the color coding and the marking of keywords and phrases helps you identify your errors. If not, please let a teacher know so that it can give you some feedback and clarify even more. You actually already have credit for the do and undo charts too. So now it's just showing your work algebraically and getting a solution and then substituting that solution back into the original equation and seeing if it works. A new resource was added as well in the resource section on Google Classroom, and it's just a list of words and phrases that are connected with the different math operations, things that would be indicators of addition or subtraction, multiplication, division, equals, even words that would be parentheses words. If you have the ability to print this, it could go into the resource section of your binder if you have your binder with you. And if you don't have the ability to print it, you could create your own notebook paper, scratch paper, maybe even color coding some. And if you know other synonyms, feel free to add those in. And this is your Head Start for worksheet 30. Hope it is helpful.